next question that I'm going to solve is this one. So we are basically given the price list and we have to buy and sell stock, and we have to buy cheaper and sell at a higher price. Basically, we're optimizing for maximum profit. Now, for something like this, this question reminded me of the water container problem. I believe that was the medium problem. So before we can understand like how to maximize it, okay, let's first write the problem on the board. So we have 7 1. You know what? I think we should skip these brackets. These make it harder to like draw stuff around. So let's go with this one. And then we have this and this and this. Okay, 715,364. Okay, we got it right. And the output, okay, why won't it work? Well, this is weird. At times it doesn't. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now the output should be 5. How do they get that? Well, 6 minus 1 gets them 5. So, you see 6. Okay, so this is a two-pointer problem, right? And let me explain why I would say this is not a sliding window problem. Because we are supposed to pick pair. We don't care what is in between. If we did care about that, then it would have been sliding window problem. So at least now we know this is a two-pointer problem. But now how to solve this? First, we need to know what are we optimizing for. Well, we are optimizing this thing, sell and buy price, right? So we want to make sure this is as high as possible, right? This is the profit. Okay, so in order to do that, we just need to make sure there is a greater difference between these two numbers, right? And the difference has to be more than 0. So we don't want to get into negatives. Now, when can we get into negatives? Well, we can end up in negative when we are buying high and selling cheaper, right? So in that case, it would become 1 minus 7, so minus 6. That's the loss, right? So I thought about it and I thought, okay, perhaps I can go around doing it like this. I point the left pointer to this and right to this one. Now, how did I decide against placing the right pointer over here? Well, I thought about it and I was comparing it with the water container problem. But then in the water container problem, we placed the left and right pointers apart. Why? Because we were trying to optimize for maximum width. But in this case, there is no reason for that. So that's why I have to place pointers next to each other, right? And once I do that, now I check what is the um, profit, which is minus 6. So we are in loss. So there has to be a condition that would check, okay, now we're in the loss. So we need to move left to the right. And the idea behind was that because this is the lowest price so far that we have seen. So we need to purchase at that price. We need to buy at that. So that's why we'll move left. Okay, but I reduce the size of the eraser. So we need to move left to this point, and then because right is the loop variable, so it would by itself get to the other, get implemented. Okay. So now we're here. Now 5 minus 1. What is that? Well, that would be the 4 unit profit. Also for profit, the default value will be 0, because in the question there was a condition that if you're not able to find the appropriate sell and buy price, then you should return profit. So if we default it to 0, then if the loop doesn't do anything and doesn't update the profit, at least we'll get the default value as asked in the question, right? So okay, we did that. Now profit is 4. Okay, and then right moves ahead and it goes to 3. Right is over here. Now we check. Now the profit is 2, but 2 is less than profit, right? So we're not going to update it. So let's get rid of this. Now we move to 6, and 6 minus 1, well, that is definitely 5 more than 4, the previous profit. So we update that. And having said that, let's make some room. So now we move this to this place, the last index, and 4 minus 1, it's 3, which is less than current profit, so we don't do anything there. And now let's write the code for this one. So I am going to take to 0, and then the right would point to left plus 1, right? Afterward, we're gonna say, okay, right, and then, well, we have prices dot length, and now we're gonna iterate all the ways to the end. So right is basically scanning forward, and we have diff variable. I'm not writing const over here. Okay, if you must, then I'll write. So how do we get the profit loss? We get right, and then I subtract the buying price. Now I write if difference is less than 0, that means we're in negative. So we need to update left. And what should be the left now? Right. And right will move forward, left would take its place. And what happens next? In the next iteration, when this is not true, what do we do then? Well, then we need to update the profit. And how would we do that? Well, we do that by comparing the existing value in the profit with uh, the new profit. Diff, yeah, that's the profit. So we don't need to recalculate this thing. We have it in the variable, so that's good. And then the loop ends. And always you need to think about what happens if the loop doesn't run, right? So you need to make sure the variable that you're returning has the default value set or something. Should be handled through a conditional. Anyways, and the algorithm complexity is this. So that's one way to do it. But we haven't discussed or thought about the um, well, what was the one? The brute force way. How would we do this with the brute force way? Well, I don't have much room left over here. Well, let's try to think about it. Let's try to make some room. Okay. How do we solve it using brute force? Well, we'll pick an element. Let's say I'll pick this one, and then I'll look through the array. So I'll go to n elements and looking for a price that is less than 7, right? No, that is more than, greater than 7, right? Okay, and I'll take the diff and I'll save it in the profit. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing for 1, but this time I'll go n minus 1 terms, n minus 2, and look at this. The number of the uh, operations that we're performing are decreasing, and in the end it is going to be, when I'm standing here, then it would be 1, and then it will be 0 for the last one, because when you're here you can't really sell, right? Because if you buy here, how are you going to sell? That's not possible. But if you look at this, how many terms do we have? Well, we have n plus 1 terms. Well, let's think about these n terms. What would be the sum of these if I ignore the 0, right? The 0th term, right? If I ignore that, I mean that's a term, right? So we have n plus 1 terms, right? So this is an arithmetic series, right? So let's try to find the sum of the damn thing. 2a plus n minus 1, if I remember correctly. Well, yeah, I do remember correctly. Okay, so the terms we got n plus 1 terms divided by what was the starting term, first term, a represents the first term. So there is that, and then we have n plus 1 minus 1, and what is the difference? Minus 1. Let's solve it. N plus 1, 2, these would cancel out, and these would become n, and this would be n squared by 2 plus n. So again, these will be dropped, the constant will be dropped. This is less significant term, so let's get rid of that, and we're left with this. So we can see this is n to the power of square, but it was good to solve this one. And yeah, that's all I have for today.